Hello everybody, Joe Locklear here with Real Investor Mentors. Today's class is entitled Finding Your Path Through the Real Estate Maze. Now, this class, in my opinion, may be the most important real estate class that you ever take because it's going to be instrumental in your success. I want to begin with a poem by Robert Frost entitled The Road Not Taken. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. You know, let's talk about the common path versus your chosen path. The common pathway to real estate success is often determined by the advice of others. Perhaps you know someone who's been successful in this business, and let's assume they were a wholesaler. So you look at them and you say, look, I want to get in the real estate business. What should I do? And the advice they give you is be a wholesaler because that worked for them. Or maybe there's someone that you've listened to that tells you, the only way to be successful in the real estate business and really make it big is to own real estate and to hold real property. So, that may have worked great for them, but it just may not work great for you. Now, finally, I want to talk about the guru effect. And here's what the guru effect is. You go to a seminar, maybe you paid a few bucks to get in the door, and there's a guru there who's presenting a program, and that program is presented like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. They tell you how they made millions and millions of dollars and how anybody can do it, how it's so simple. All you have to do is follow their proven formula. Again, they may be honest, it may be the greatest thing for them, but it may not be suited to you. The key to me early in your real estate career is to learn how to determine your own path, and your pathway should be determined by self-analysis, educated self-analysis. You need some information, which I'm going to give you in this class, and then hopefully by the end of this class, you'll have a pretty good idea of what you might be successful at in the real estate business. Your analysis has got to be based on your assets and your abilities. In other words, who are you? And then finally, your pathway has got to meet your goals. Why are you in the real estate business? And it's got to meet your time frames. How long do you have to meet your goals? When I think about this class, I often think of a trip, planning a trip. And when I ask my students in a live class, what's the first thing you have to know before you can plan a trip, they usually answer where you're going. Okay, that is an incorrect answer because the first thing you've got to know is where you are. Can you imagine trying to map out a path or trip or a plan to get somewhere when you don't know where you're leaving from? That certainly won't work. So the number one thing you've got to do is determine where are you now. And then next, yes, where do you want to go? What do you want real estate to do for you? And then last but not least, how long do you have to get to your destination? For example, if you're in Jacksonville and your destination is San Francisco, California, and you've got 3 weeks to get there, well, you can hitchhike in 3 weeks. You can get there a lot of different ways. But what if you've only got, let's say, 7 hours or 8 hours? You only have one pathway, and that is to get on a jet and fly. So time is very, very important when planning a trip. How long do you have to get there? Okay, let's do some homework here. Let's sit down, and if you need to take out a piece of paper, certainly do that. Of course, you can pause this at any time, take some notes, but it's very, very important that we work on this information, and this is going to be a big deal in your real estate career. I promise you, this is something that you need to do. Okay, beginning with where are you now? What are your assets and your abilities? In other words, Do you have a college degree in economics? Did you go to school to be an engineer? What is your background? Maybe you only have a high school education. I know some very successful people that don't even have a high school education. So I'm not saying one of these is going to make you more or less susceptible to success. I'm just saying you need to understand what your abilities are. So what's your education? And what's your experience? What have you done in your life? I have a lot of experience in the construction business, and that made a difference in the path that I chose. I had a background in engineering, I had some sales experience. So all of these experiences went together to help me determine where I am now. What is my current situation? What are my assets? And what are my abilities? I want you to do that right now. Write them down. Write down what you think your assets are. What are you good at? What do you like? And what are your abilities? How about cash in your credit situation? How much cash do you have on hand? Now, if you don't have any cash, that doesn't mean that you can't be successful in the real estate business, but it may mean that you have to follow a different path. If you have a lot of cash, that doesn't mean you're going to be successful either. The key is to find the right path, but determining how much cash that you have and how much cash you can borrow if you decide to borrow, which I don't always advise, is very, very important. So again, number one, what's your background and experience? Number two, what's your cash and your credit situation? And number three, how much time can you invest? Now, I'm not talking about the length of time from when you start to when you're successful. I'm talking about how many hours a day, how many days a week do you want to go into this, part-time or full-time? It's very important that you understand how much time you have that you can invest to meet your goals. And when you put these three things together, again, what are your assets and abilities? What's your education and experience? What's your cash and your credit situation? And how much time can you invest? Take a few minutes, do some self-analysis, and write this down. Okay, taking the trip, remember, you next had to determine where you want to go. Well, where do you want to go? Why are you interested in real estate? What is it that you're after? What do you want real estate to do for you? Do you need cash income now? Is that your number one goal? What about retirement income? Let's assume that you have a good income now, but you're concerned about your retirement. Okay? And again, you may not continue in the business where you start. What we're talking about right now is your starting point, your path. In my career, I've done just about everything in real estate. I've been on many different paths. I've been good at some, I've been not so good at others, but you seldom end up where you begin. And as doors begin to open to you, maybe you build up some cash reserves, you can step out on some other pathways. But right now, remember, we're talking about where you begin. So do you need cash income now, or do you have a good job, you have plenty of income, and you want to focus on retirement income? Now, perhaps you have a 401k, you have a pretty good retirement. Maybe you're in your mid-50s and you're fairly well off, but you want to be wealthy. You're looking for real financial independence. That certainly can be a goal. And if you're following that goal, there are certain things that you want to do differently. So what about freedom? You know, as you go back and you look at your goals, if you ask me what my number one goal was, I'd probably tell you freedom. I want to wake up in the morning, and if I want to get in my boat and go fishing, as long as the weather's permitting, that's what I want to do. I can tell you I pretty much do that now anyway, but freedom is something that most of us want, very few of us ever really obtain. And I can tell you this, you're never going to obtain freedom unless you can take care of yourself financially, but a lot of times that's our real goal. Now, when do you want to meet your goal? Let's say your goal is cash income now. You might tell me, I 30 days, I need some cash in 30 days. What about retirement income? If retirement income is your number one goal, when do you need it to begin coming in? If you're looking for wealth and financial independence, at what date do you want to be there? Do you have 10 years to make that goal? Do you have 20? The younger you are, the easier it's going to be. I can tell you that. But if you're a little older, that doesn't mean it's unobtainable. It just means you follow a different path. And again, that's what this is all about, determining your path. And so when you want to meet that goal is very important. Remember when we talked about the trip? You got to be from Jacksonville to San Francisco, and you got to be there in 12 hours. You can only follow one path. But if you have 3 weeks, there are a lot of different ways to get there. If you have 20 or 30 years to meet your goal in real estate, there's a lot of different paths. There are a lot of areas. You can follow the wrong path. You can turn around and you can still make it. But if you wait until you have a few years, your path is only going to be one way, and you're going to have to do some things right to get there. So where do you want to go is very, very important. So hopefully you'll look at this and you'll write down now, where is the number one place that you want to go? What is the number one thing that you want from real estate investing? How much time do you have to get there? We just talked about that. Time is a key factor. Do you have 12 hours a week or 2 months? If you're taking a trip and you have 12 hours, it's a jet plane. You drive your car in a week. In 2 months, you could take a train, a bus, or you could hitchhike. Very, very important that you have a set time frame to reach success. Okay, now we've gone over determining our path through the real estate maze. Please take a few minutes and write down what you think your goals are, your current situation, and how long you have to meet that goal. Because now we're going to talk about some pathways, some options. Sometimes I call this a menu. It's a menu of pathways. But again, it's based on your assets and abilities. It's based on your background. It's based on your time frame. So if you haven't written those down, and if you don't have a good idea of who you are, where you are now, where you want to go, and the time frame, you may not be ready to go through this menu. So take a few minutes and make sure that you have that down and understand that. Okay, we're going to begin with what's called wholesaling real estate. Now, wholesaling real estate is where you go out and you find a good deal on a property. You may put that property under contract, or you may purchase it. Most people just put it under contract, and then they find someone else that is looking for a deal. Maybe they're looking for a rehab as a rental. Maybe they're looking for a retail deal, and you assign that contract to another buyer. And you go through these fairly quickly. I was in the real estate business back in the 80s for about 6 years. All I did was rental property. And then I left to go back into the construction management business as a project engineer. And then I came back in 2001. And in 2001, one of my best friends told me, "Hey, Joe, things have changed. I know you used to buy and sell a lot of properties, but it's really changed, and the market's not what it used to be. You'll never do what you did." And he was true. His words were true. I wasn't doing what I did because I used to turn 20, 30 pieces of property a year. My first year back in the wholesale business, I turned 52 properties. And I credit that a little bit to my friend. He motivated me by challenging me and telling me that I couldn't do something. And you know, I'm an achiever. If you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to try. I'm going to really give it a good try. So as we go through each of these menu items, what I want to do is something you may not hear from a lot of the gurus, and that is I'm going to tell you the upside and the downside. I like to ride motorcycles, and we have a saying, keep the shiny side up, keep the dirty side down. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to show you both sides, the shiny side and the dirty side. So let's look at wholesaling and let's talk about the shiny side. What's the upside? It provides quick cash. If you say, I got to have cash, I got to have it in 30 days, the only way you're going to get that is in the wholesaling business. so it provides a quick income boost. You can get started on a budget. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of money to get into the wholesaling business. You can get in on the basis of doing a lot of labor yourself, a lot of things hands-on, and you can get in on a shoestring budget, a few $100. Low personal liability. Now, what does that mean? If you go put a property under contract and you can't close, the worst that's going to happen to you is you're going to lose your binder. And I don't generally give big binders. $100 is about the most that I'm going to give someone on a binder, unless it's an MLS deal and it requires more. But you don't have a lot of risk. You can just not close, and they're not going to sue you. That's not going to happen. And if you've gone into one of the other fields where you have to borrow money, you have a lot of liability. Here in the wholesaling business, there is not a lot of personal liability. So that's the shiny side. What's the downside? Wholesaling is very competitive. Now, I know the gurus tell you that it's easy. I'm telling you it is not easy. It is extremely competitive. Now, if you go out and you look and you find a deal, there are going to be other people that are going to be bidding on those deals. If you're looking on MLS right now, the MLS market is tight because there are a lot of people out there. It is a very competitive business. And you need refined buying skills. What that means is you've got to become good at buying, and that's going to take some studying. Now, I do want to tell you there are a lot of people out there that call themselves wholesalers. I call them hustlers. They go out and they just try to find everything they can for sale, and they get into an email group and they throw it out on that email group. Most of them don't have it under contract. I'll see the same property come from 2 or 3 people. Those are people that are out hustling, trying to make it a buck, trying to make a buck. They'll never be in the wholesaling business for very long. Most of them last about a year at the most, and they decide that they're not making the money that they thought they were going to make. The gurus push wholesaling because they can tell you you don't need any money and you can get in on a shoestring. All you need is the money to buy their course, which might be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. So, they push wholesaling because it sounds good. And it does have some good sides, certainly. And I've wholesaled a lot of houses. But it also has some downsides. And one is it's very competitive and you need refined buying skills. The income is unstable. You might make a sale today and make $3,000, $4,000. Then you may not make another sale for 2 or 3 months. Now, in 2002, when I came back full-time into the business and I turned 52 properties, I ran a lot of money through my bank account, several $1,000,000. And I went to get a loan. I wanted to hold one of these properties. They turned me down because my income was too unstable. In other words, I made big money 1 month and I went 3 months without income. Now, that was kind of silly, but the banks look at it that way, and you need to understand you're going to have an unsteady income in that business. The longer it takes you to get good at it, the more unstable your income is going to be. It's time consuming. Not only is the income unstable, you're going to have to spend a lot of time. Gurus that tell you, oh, you can do this in your spare time, that is absolutely not true. You're not going to do it in your spare time. So it is time consuming, in my opinion. It's a full-time job. Now, does that mean you can't get out there and stir something up and apply yourself and get a quick deal? No, it doesn't mean that. And when I say it's full-time, I mean if you want to fully support yourself. There's a saying, even an old blind hog will pick up an acorn every now and then. You may get lucky, get out there and get a deal, and I've certainly had some of my students do that. I've challenged them to go put out flyers on doors. I've had 2 students that did exactly what I told them, and within a couple of weeks, they were new to the real estate business, went out and found a deal, made I think one made $3,000 and one made $5,000. So you can get lucky, but there are hundreds of other students that weren't able to do that. So that is the upside and the downside of wholesaling real estate. Now, let's talk about fixing and flipping houses. This is what you see all over the home TV stations where a couple goes in, and it's almost always a couple or brothers, and they buy a house, they fix it, and then they retail it. That is called fixing and flipping houses. Now, it has its upside. Higher profit per deal. You're going to make 2, 3, 4 times the amount on a fix and flip, or you should make that much, as opposed to a wholesale. So the upside certainly is higher profit per deal. Low cash investment. And you may say, well, where's the money come from? Well, you can borrow the money. If it's a good deal, there are lenders out there that will lend on that deal, so you don't normally need a lot of your cash. If lenders require you to put a lot of cash in the deal, it's normally not a good profitable deal, because they love to lend money on a fix and flip because they think they're going to have it back in 6 months. Sometimes it takes longer. But you can get in without a lot of cash, and you can get in without real good credit if you can find a good enough deal, whereas they are lending just on the deal. Renovations can be fun. I mean, I like to watch the home TV shows. I like to see them get in and tear this wall out and tear that wall out. I can tell you this, they oversimplify it. Tearing out walls needs engineering, needs someone that knows what they're doing. So be careful when you watch those shows that you don't think it's as easy as they make it look. But it can be fun. And you're helping people in neighborhoods. When you go into a neighborhood and you take a property that's an eyesore, the worst property in that neighborhood, and you go in and you renovate it, and you make it the nicest property in the neighborhood, guess what? The neighbors are going to love you. They're going to come over and praise you and say, thank you for helping our neighborhood. And you are helping neighborhoods, and you're helping a family get into a home that you know is a really nice home because you've renovated it. So that's the upside of fix and flips, and like everything, there's an upside and a downside.